So let's dig into what actually artificial intelligence or AI actually is. At first, it can seem daunting in like a big complex task. The whole thing bakes down into the simple fact that AI is meant to predict something. All this compute and sophistication of machine learning and everything, it's really about enabling AI to predict. The simplest way to think about that is the type ahead on your texting on your phone. When you begin to type on your phone a text message to someone in your family or a friend, oftentimes it's suggesting to you next words that might be in your sentence. That is a great example of what artificial intelligence is. Apply that to more sophisticated use cases like fraud or email generation and all of these types of things, and really you're just getting larger versions of that type ahead that are suggesting and predicting other elements for you to use. So when people mention AI, they could actually mean a lot of different things in a lot of different use cases. So let's dig into the next where we break down different elements of AI for you to actually take a look at. In this AI family tree, you'll see a couple different elements. First, at the broadest level, artificial intelligence really encompasses all of this. Next, machine learning is a subsegment of AI that really specializes in specific models for specific use cases and really gets into a little bit more targeted use. After that, generative AI is the largest sort of phenomenon we've all been hearing about a lot lately with OpenAI and ChatGPT and Claude and all these different LLMs. Generative AI is a subsegment of all these that are all powered by LLMs. LLMs are the models underneath generative AI that are doing that prediction. So when you feed them text or images or other content, they're always trying to predict the next thing, just like that type ahead we had talked about earlier, predicting in your text messages. So in generative AI, there's a lot of different terms that you're going to hear of pretty frequently. So let's go into all these different terms and really define each one for you to have a good understanding. First is prompts. Prompts are that type ahead in that initial text you're feeding an LLM or generative AI so that you can tell it what you want to do. The best way to think about prompts is like you're delegating a task. The same way you would delegate to an assistant that works for you, you would give them the context of what you're asking them to do. The prompt is that context and that request of what you're asking the LLM to do. Next is the model. Models are different types of LLMs that may specialize in different tasks. So at the first, you're using OpenAI and you might just be using OpenAI, but did you know that under OpenAI, there's several different models in ChatGPT. There's several different models that you can use that are good at different tasks. Also, models have different characteristics. Some might be fast to respond to you, but a little lower quality. Or some might be slower to respond to you, but have really high quality. This is just like different assistants, right? You could have that really junior assistant that's quick at doing things, or that really senior assistant that's really thoughtful in how they approach things and how they respond. These different models have different characteristics with different skills. And over time, you might start to specialize and select different models. At first, it's okay. There's really general models. You can just use the general models for almost any task at first. Next is training data. Training data isn't your problem, right? Training data is data that other people use to train models, and they're making these models for you so that you can apply them in your daily use case. Your only thing you should understand about training data is that other companies really need a sophisticated and intensive training data to make these models for you. Also, we're going to talk about the guardrails and the risks a little bit later, but you want to make sure your data isn't becoming part of the training data going forward, or at least that you know when it is. So training data, not your problem, but let's make sure your data is safe from becoming training data for others. Next is hallucinations. Hallucinations is such a fun term in AI. And really what it means is these models, when they're predicting that next type ahead or that response that they're going to give to you, sometimes they can go off the rails. That type ahead, when you're talking to your friend or family, sometimes suggests some pretty odd words, doesn't it? Hallucinations are just that. Hallucinations are really when the model has gone off the rails and is suggesting things very confidently that this is the right thing to respond with, but it's actually not right. You need to keep close watch over your AI usage to watch for hallucinations, and we'll talk about some methods in a little bit for that as well. Context is up next, and context is so important because just like when you're delegating to your assistant, if you don't give the right context for the situation, your assistant's going to go and do something maybe the wrong way, right? One example I've often used for this is, let's say you're throwing a dinner party and you ask your assistant to throw a dinner party for you. They might set up and throw a big buffet for 50 people. Well, you didn't give them the right context that you're asking for a dinner party with 5 or 6 people. That's all the context you need to supply. So in your use cases, context can be files, can be images, can be wordings or meeting notes. Now, when you design your prompt of some request you want to give the LLM or AI to actually provide you, you need to provide all that additional context with that prompt so that you're getting high quality responses and limiting those hallucinations. And fine-tuning. Fine-tuning is when you're getting to more advanced use cases where you really want to improve the quality, limit those hallucinations, and really get high quality results. Fine-tuning is a way you can feed additional data, examples. Let's say you've gone through something 10, 20, 100 times with the same LLM. You can feed all those past examples with some quality notes or some recommendations on how to improve it to that LLM so that it continues to fine-tune its results, thereby giving you higher quality results with less hallucinations. And as you can see, that word hallucinations is the perfect transition for what we want to talk next, because we want to talk about where AI is reliable and where it's not, and how you can make the best use of it. So let's dig into that. First of all, things like emails and meeting summaries and reviewing rough drafts of maybe statements of work or scopes. AI is great at that, and generative AI use cases will really support you well for that. Things that it's not really good for are things like mathematics. If you give it a problem statement with a lot of numbers in it, it's actually more of a text predictor than a mathematics calculator. And so you really want to be careful that those hallucinations aren't creeping its way into your math. Also, things like real-time updates from news feeds or public information. The LLMs are trained on all that data, the training data we talked about earlier. And that training data is only so up to date every time the companies produce another model. And so that model you're leveraging in the LLM isn't going to have all the latest news and updates for public information. So you really want to be careful that you're not relying on that public information from the model itself, and you're providing that as part of the context and prompt you're suggesting to the model. And lastly, legal information, financial disclosures, all of these types of really strict information, you're going to want to provide that within the context and prompt as well. The LLMs aren't going to be a reliable source for all of those types of information. The next question we want to dig into is whether you should be on a free tier or a paid plan for these LLM providers. It's important to know the differences. First is, on a free tier, you're going to be very limited on features and capabilities. You might have older models that you have access to and not the latest and fancy and capable models, as well as your data is getting used by those models for training data going forward. That's where paid plans really start to benefit. Your data is now protected. You're able to use the LLM for private information that you wouldn't want out in the public, and you're getting all those latest features, maybe more models, more usage, higher bandwidth of usage, those types of things. So you're really getting a lot of benefits from this. Many companies are starting to bake in a significant budget for AI usage within their staff. That's because it's getting their staff additional capability and utilization and capacity that they wouldn't have had. You will need to grow your staff less over time as you enhance them with AI adoption and really power some of their more challenging tasks with AI. So one rule of thumb is leveraging the free tiers for learning and experimenting, and then getting to those paid tiers once you actually have a little bit more confidence and want to use your company's data for actual tasks within the given workflow. And that's actually a great segue to our next section with how you can protect your data by understanding the risks and getting some good guardrails in place for your different usage.